according to Lashai. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Whether you're listening or watching this, I have a super special guest here with me today. She's so inspirational, and I'm such a big fan of the work that she does. And she's also one of the stars in the latest How Thoughts Become Things movie. So, Meagan, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lashai, for having me on here. It is such an honor, and I have been loving everything that's been going on. So it's so exciting to be here with you. So my name is Meagan Fettes. I am one of the thought leaders in How Thoughts Become Things. And really what my journey has been, or what my focus in life is educating people on the true functions of our minds so that we can begin to utilize our minds in the way that we want to shift the trajectory of our life and our business, and really start to manifest and create or co-create the things that we really want in our life versus the things or the patterns that we don't love.
Wow, yeah, that's so amazing. And I loved everything that you were teaching and talking about in the movie, because there are some times that you sort of touched on relationships and how to heal from those and how to deal with difficult people around you and things like that, which I found so interesting to watch and learn about. And so obviously thank you for sharing. And I would like to ask you, what made you feel so sort of intrigued and like so passionate about wanting to be a part of this movie and this project? Why was it so important to you to share with the world and be a part of such a powerful movie?
Well, it's one of those things, right? Like when we've experienced the shifts and the changes, that really when we take responsibility of our thoughts and when we choose to become in alignment with our actions, the changes that we see in our lives are crazy. Like I can't even really explain how much it changed my life and how much I've witnessed and seen it change my clients and everybody around me's life. And so to be able to share my message in a movie and be able to like expand the reach that much further is so exciting, especially right now when people are, I kind of call it the Great Awakening, because people are starting to awaken. They're starting to realize that fear-based thoughts are no longer working for them, or old patterns aren't serving them, and they're looking. And so now they have the capacity to grab onto something that can start them in the right journey that they're meant to be in.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And obviously this current situation and the state of the world with what's going on, it's so important for people to be aware of the fact that they can control their thoughts and that their thoughts do become things. So whatever you're feeling, whatever you're feeding into, you are going to sort of manifest that into your life. And even though at times where it may feel as though we're not in control of all the situations that are going on in our life, or like we've been put in situations, it's really important for each of us to remember that we do have a say in what's going to happen tomorrow and the things that are going to come into our lives. So thank you so much for sharing that. The next thing I'd like to ask you is, when was the moment where it sort of clicked to you that this was the sort of work you wanted to do in terms of giving back, helping people to dig deeper and unlock who they truly are, and healing and manifesting? When did that all start for you?
Well, I lucked out because I grew up with a grandmother who taught me all of these tools at a very young age. And she just very much lived a life of abundance and love. And everybody that met her spoke about how she just radiated love. And so I kind of had that at the beginning of my life. And then I went through my journey of addiction, and I went through my struggles and my challenges, and I came across my first yoga teacher training, which was really the starting point, or the second pivot point, I'll call it, in my life. And I went into that yoga teacher training with no intention whatsoever to teach. I thought I was just going to learn how to do postures, and I was going to master them, and I was going to be this great yogic warrior, if you want to call it that. And it was so different. I got we dove deep into personal development, and it was like a reawakening within myself. And I got to look at all of the ways that I was letting myself off the hook, and all of the excuses I was creating, and all of the ways that I was showing up that weren't in alignment with who I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to do a lot of hard work because that's part of this process, right?
Yeah.
Truly owning every aspect of our being and our life. And when I came out of that, there was just a knowing, there was like a soul pull that
Mm.
I could not share this work. And it just took over my life. And it's actually one of those things where like spiritual and personal development are at the forefront of my values, because without those, like, we're always growing, we're always evolving. And the more that I can grow and develop myself, the more I can support other people. And that's what it's all about.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And it's exactly what you said, because I've experienced some people being in a similar line to work of yourself, where people said, I don't know if personal development is for me, or it's a bit out there, but how can developing yourself and healing and growing yourself not be for you? So obviously it's a huge and important part of everyone's life. And it's so amazing that you're out there consciously and actively doing the work to help other people unlock those things and those lovely values that had been passed down from your grandmother. That's so lovely to have some, because a lot of the time, some people, you have to go externally, find these coaches, but growing up with someone like that.
Yes. Yeah, I lucked out, honestly. I thank like God, the universe, every single day for the people that I had in the foundations of my life,
Mm.
because and then, like, she was one who she went through a lot of struggles,
Mm-hmm.
but through those struggles found a deeper sense of herself, right? And I think that's something so valuable to find, that when we can finally choose to surrender to those challenges and those struggles and recognize that they're not happening to break us apart, they're actually happening to break all those layers that we've created around ourselves down, so that that true self, that true potential can rise up.
Yes, exactly. And I find that, especially nowadays with social media being a big part of people's life, it's so easy to have the facade and sort of play into that and having to look a certain way. But going deeper is like really the bravest thing that you can do, because you're looking at where am I actually out of alignment? Am I just doing this for show? Is this making me feel fulfilled? So it is really a big thing to do and not an easy thing. So exactly like what you've done, you've said that you've gone through addiction, there are things you had to overcome, you turned your adversities into empowerment, and that's not an easy thing to do. So my next question is, what advice would you perhaps have for someone who is currently in a difficult situation, or they're feeling down or going through a mental illness? What would you say that first step they should take is?
Mm. One of the first steps that I always recommend is look at what is currently happening in your life. So, because we're generally beings that look externally first, even though we want to learn how to move from the internal to create the external, we can also utilize the external to understand the internal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we look always at the external, and we want to look at the points of where we're placing blame or where we're pointing the finger, because those are areas that we're creating resistance. And we want to look at what is our role in that. So
Mm-hmm.
what have I created, or what am I doing that's creating this situation? And it's not always like an easy find. Sometimes we have to look at, maybe I'm giving my power away, or maybe I'm not being authentic, whatever it might be. And once we determine what those are in those external worlds, then all of a sudden we regain our power, and we actually have the opportunity to choose.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep showing up the way that we have been, or we want to embrace the opposite and choose something different.
Exact. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, because like we've touched on numerous times already, just in the short time we've been speaking, it is about the inner work. And a lot of the time, like you said, your exterior can reflect what's going on in the inside. Perhaps you have a really difficult time communicating with people. Perhaps that might reflect the fact that you're not speaking your truth, you're not being authentically you. So sometimes looking externally can help you to pinpoint sort of where you can progress and what needs working on. sort of, I would love to find out what your sort of daily routine is. Obviously, I know that you're a mum, and I have so much respect for mums, so I know every day isn't the same. But is there like a ritual that you like to try to keep to? For example, like meditating in the morning, or trying to do it at some point in the day?
Yes. My morning is like my sanctuary. It's my
Mm.
time. And no matter what happens, whether I'm up through the night with my boys or things get a little bit crazy, my morning I always make time for.
Mhm.
And I'm a big believer that how we start our day, like those first 30 minutes, is usually the theme that we're going to create throughout our day if we're not intentional. And so the first 30 minutes, I like to come in and I focus on breath work, and more so to get tapped in with the connection between the body and the mind.
Mhm.
And then I will share or write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. And in that process, and I always say this is really important because it's easy to just write things down, but as you're writing them down, I personally feel them in my heart and
Mhm.
really allow them to settle into a feeling versus just a thought.
Yes.
And then once I've done those 3 things that I'm grateful for, then I move into visualization. And I visualize those 3 things that have cultivated and supported me to be where I am. And then I also visualize where it is that I want to go next.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Because sometimes it's fine to sort of know that you need to improve, and knowing that you want to heal yourself or grow, but it really helps to know where to start, and it helps you to sort of consciously and actively be pursuing whatever your goal is. Because how many times in life, like I could wake up tomorrow and think, oh, I really want to become a carpenter, but if you're sort of not in touch with someone who is maybe at the top of their game, or someone who has knowledge around that, it can be a bit confusing where to start. So definitely a meditation, something that I love to do as well, and similar to yourself. And really intentional journaling, or the action of sort of writing things down. Everyone's different, so some people love to journal, some people just love to do it in their mind and do things that way. But thank you so much for sharing that. And next, I would love for any advice that you have for perhaps young girls that are sort of coming to a point in their life where they realize that they're not being their authentic self, but they're a bit worried of how people will perceive them and things like that. What advice would you have for young girls out there?
I love that question. And I know that you had shared a little bit before we started this recording about the things that you're doing and your experience. And I just have to say, I had actually a similar experience myself in my life. And so I think it's really important, especially as girls, because we go through that stage in life where we're not overly nice to each other when we're growing up. And I think it's so important to recognize that it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like people get told that all the time, but I do this with my boys. My oldest is like 5 years old, and he's at that point where he's starting to like look externally for that validation.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that we do every single day is I get him to stand in front of the mirror and I get him to look at himself. And we talk about 5 things that he loves about himself. And I think it's so important because in a world where we're focused often on that external validation,
Mm-hmm.
for young girls at whatever age, it's so important to start bringing it in, because the only opinion that matters is your own.
Yes.
And so what kind of daily practices can you do that are going to uplift? And one of those is look at yourself, really see yourself, and appreciate the things that you can truly love about yourself.
Wow. Yeah, I so agree with that and really resonate with what you just said. Because it's so easy, especially nowadays. You see a picture and you just expect everyone to look perfect, and as soon as you see something that's sort of like not aesthetically pleasing or this or that, people are really quick to tear it down. But it's just taking the time to either one-on-one with yourself in the mirror, like what you do with your son, or even sort of praising other women, because no one's perfect. And sometimes sometimes people might look at a girl and see, oh, she has like stretch marks or scars, but appreciating the beauty, wow, like she's brave, she's beautiful, she's this and that, and that's how we can sort of come together and raise each other up. So thank you so much for sharing that. I totally agree. And next, I'd like to ask you, as someone who is an amazing mother, what sort of changed for you from going in a point in your life where perhaps you were sort of the main person that you had to sort of focus on, it was developing yourself, to now having young kids who you're a role model for and you're having to guide them? What sort of changes have you found?
Oh, it's such a good question. And I love it because I say all the time, people ask me, they're like, what is the best personal development you've ever done? And I always say it's being a mom,
Wow.
because I believe that our kids come in with messages for, like, they're bigger teachers for us
Mhm.
than we ever will be for them. And they are constantly keeping us or calling us out when we're not showing up as our best self. So it's like right in the face there. But the thing that I noticed changed the most is there's a deeper desire to
Mm,
continue growing and to continue showing up
mm,
in my best self, because not only do I have these two little beings that will call me out on it, but I'm also their guide and the person that they're looking to. And so that I always think about, what is it that I can teach them today? And I can teach them best by showing up that way.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
that would be totally what I noticed change.
And like, so a lot of the things, like, even though I'm not a mother myself, but because I have like younger siblings and I'm the eldest, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, because kids are so unapologetically honest with you. Like, oh, it is hilarious sometimes, the things that like you won't think they will notice, they'll pick out. They say, oh, like, why are you doing that? That doesn't really make sense. So they are such pure and honest beings that you
Oh
can learn a lot from them, but it's quite funny at times.
yeah. Oh yes, they're so fun, and that's the most beautiful thing, right? I think
Mhm.
watching them and be that okay with their inner weirdo, I like to call it,
Mhm.
where they're just them and they're unique and there's no apologies for that.
Mhm.
And it's funny because it'll trigger those things within us. Like as a mom, I remember some of the weird things that like my oldest son would do.
Mhm.
And I'd look at him and be like, oh my gosh, I wonder what people are thinking of me.
Yeah.
And then it would be like that light bulb of like, okay, whoa, it's not even about me in this moment. It's him doing it. And B, does it even matter? Because
Mm.
this is really cool to witness and watch.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so just leading on from there, I'd love to find out, because obviously you work really hard, you're sharing, you're being of service to people a lot of the time. So what are some ways that you like to pour back into yourself? Or what are some good ways that you set boundaries even? Because when you're someone that's a healer and giving so much, what are some good ways to set boundaries but still be honest and giving and kind, but set boundaries and take time to pour back into yourself?
And boundaries are vital. They're
Mm.
absolutely important. And it really, and it's funny because over this last little bit, my boundaries have shifted quite substantially.
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is allowing them to shift as they need to, because there really is no such thing as balance. It's always in the moment. And when we find that balance of boundaries, usually something shifts.
Mhm.
But for me, often what it is my work time is a very specific time, and I don't work anything outside of that, because I know my time is important, just like everybody's. But I also know that I can't maintain or keep up with my word if I take on too much.
Yes.
So I'm very intentional with keeping that space, and then making sure that I get outside every single day. It doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing. We get outside, and I always make sure that I tap into at least an hour where I am like full out playing like a child with my kids.
Mm.
And so that's really where my boundaries come in. And whenever there is something that's outside of my boundaries, speaking to it, and knowing that it's okay, right? People may not necessarily love it at the moment, but they'll appreciate it more in the long term.
Exactly. And what one thing that I like that you touched on with that is the fact that if you sort of go overboard with yourself or run yourself dry, you're not going to be giving from the best of what you are or in the best sense that you can. So yeah,
Mhm.
I totally resonate with that. So I would love to sort of just thank you so much for your time. I don't want to keep you too long so you can get back to your beautiful boys. But just before you go, could you sort of leave us with a parting message and then some ways that people can find out more about you, a website, social media, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my biggest parting messages would be checking in with doing one thing every single day that lights you up. And so for me, like I said, it's play. Like I love the laughter. I love feeling like a kid again. I love just being in that free space. And it doesn't necessarily have to be play. For some, it might be just eating a really delicious meal. It might be just hanging out, drinking a cup of tea, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But do and commit to doing that at least once every single day. And if you want to find me, I'm totally open. Like, I would love that. I am on Facebook and Instagram, and I am on LinkedIn as well. I don't use it as often as I could. I still deem myself the technological dinosaur.
Moments. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Meagan. And like Meagan said already, feel free to get in touch with her, learn more about the work that she does because she's absolutely amazing. And yeah, just to say thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks.